All right, these are going to be sports rehab expert push-up progressions. These are the progressions that we go through to take somebody from post-op, somebody after surgery, to building them up and developing one of the most resilient shoulders possible. Push-ups are one of the key exercises to building a stronger rotator cuff, a stronger labrum, and a stronger, healthier shoulder altogether. And at the end of the video, we're going to go over the biggest mistake that people make too, so be sure to stay tuned all the way through that. From the hardest standpoint, we have push-ups through an increased amount of depth, elevating the hands to allow our torso to drop below our hands to go through a full range of motion with weight. On the easiest end of the spectrum, we have a wall push-up. It's a modified range of motion. You're not going past neutral and there's very little resistance. Now, all the way in between, we have progressions that you can utilize. Now, one of the simplest and most favorable progressions that we have is just using a pull-up bar and attaching a jump stretch band down all the way to the base and putting it at your sternum so that it gives you assist at the bottom ranges. These bottom ranges where we're taking our elbow over top of our nose, this is the largest range of motion that somebody will go through during a push-up. And as a result, this lengthened position of many of the shoulder muscles becomes sensitive for people if you progress it too quickly. So this is an easy way that we can reduce the load in the bottom position of the push-up and build resiliency over time by decreasing the resistance or the strength of the band, but still allowing the individual to express their full range of motion. Now, other ways, if you do not have a jump stretch band to provide you that assist, is just elevating the bar. Again, in most gyms will have what is called a hex bar, and you can place that in a squat rack, which again, most gyms will have. And then again, this instance, it allows you to go through a little bit of extra, couple inches range of motion to simply put just a barbell in the squat rack. But if you do not have a hex bar available to you, or even a squat rack with a barbell available to you, you can simply just utilize a countertop at home, or a plyo box, or a bench in the gym. Literally anything you can find to put you at somewhere around a 45-degree angle. Another way of doing this is with TRX straps, or you can buy or purchase adjustable ring row attachments that you can utilize, and this allows you to go from a 45-degree angle and just keep lowering yourself lower and lower to the ground over time. So utilizing rings or TRX straps is one of the simplest ways of progressively loading you down lower and lower to the ground. Now, depending on the equipment that you purchase, sometimes people find that the TRX straps get in the way of their forearms and kind of rub on their forearms, and they don't really like it too much. So there's a personal preference that some people may have. Again, the hex bar in the squat rack works very, very well if you have that available to you. And if you're going through the full depth range of motion from the floor, I just set up 2 kettlebells with the same height to provide me that extra depth. But you can also purchase push-up bars or handles that you can put on the ground, or elevate the heels of your hand on a plate, and that works well too to lower yourself and increase the amount of depth that you go through. So the biggest mistake that I see people make when they're going through these progressions, obviously, the more vertical your torso, the less gravity is going to influence you, the less resistance gravity is going to create. So just taking yourself lower and lower towards the floor is one of the easiest ways of progressing the push-up. Again, if you have a jump stretch band available to you, you can use a variety of the different resistances of the band to provide you that assistance down at the bottom position. But eventually we want to get away from that and even start loading the push-up over time. So the mistake people make is they'll progress all 3 of these variables at once, meaning one is the amount of assistance or resistance. So you do not want to progress all 3 of these variables at once. The first one is assistance or resistance. The second one is the amount of incline that the body is at. So, if you're at a 45-degree angle, then move to a 30-degree angle. Obviously, don't go from a 45 all the way down straight to the floor. And then the final one is progressing the depth, meaning going from hand even with chest to chest beyond the hand, providing that couple inches extra depth. So you don't want to change all 3 of these variables at once, meaning you don't want to provide less assistance, decreasing the angle of the torso, and increasing the depth. If you influence or change all 3 of those variables at once, that provides a scenario where many people's tendons get overloaded and the tendons become cranky. Obviously, you need to be considerate of the total volume, sets, and reps that you're doing in the first place. But when you advance the exercise, that's the biggest mistake that people will make, is advancing all three variables. I would advance one of those variables at a time. And then as you know your body responds well to it, then you can add in another variable until eventually you get all the way down to the ground, no assistance. And then again, you start changing one variable, which would be starting to add more load back into the equation. Now, one pro tip here is that many people forget that in these middle ranges, you can start adding resistance. So you don't have to stay just body weight. Maybe increasing the depth or decreasing your torso angle, getting lower to the ground, is somewhat uncomfortable for you at this current moment in time based upon your strength and range of motion limitations at the shoulder. So what you can do is, at the range of motion and the depth you're comfortable, start adding resistance and train that position under more resistance. And then a couple weeks later, maybe a month later, maybe even longer, depending on some circumstances, go back and again, change one variable at a time. So don't keep that vest on, take the vest off, and then start decreasing your incline, or start adding more depth, taking your chest beyond the hand and adding that couple of extra inches of depth. Again, don't do two variables at once. Don't change your incline and increase the depth. That's where problems happen. Just choose one, pick one, see how the body responds, and then you can add another variable in due time. Okay, and if you have any questions specifically as it relates to troubleshooting your individual problem, you can message us through the app. If you are not a member of the Sports Rehab Expert training platform, email me, Greg at sportsrehabexpert.com, and we can discuss what that looks like and how you can get started.